Okay, thank you very much everyone for coming to this talk, Standard for All, Darwin Core in Multiple Languages, organized by me, Esteban, Camila Plata, and Paula and Ana Carolina that are online. The idea behind this talk is we know how important for our users, especially our publishers, are having standards in the same language. So different experience around the world on how this has been done. We're going to start with Elie from the Natural Museum of France. He have two talks in one video because he couldn't unfortunately be here today. One for translating Darwin Core and one for translating Latimer Core. So we can start with the video.
On the official Latimer Core website. Since then, I've met Germany transition to the Latimer Core business team. Really fell in love with how nice the atmosphere was and decided to join the business team. And as Sharon would say, we're mostly happy people who participate if you want to reach us for any question or if you are interested in knowing more about Latimer Core. Because the session is focused on Darwin Core, I'll just say a few words about Latimer Core, just so that everybody knows what it is. It's also a topic standard that has been ratified in 2024. While Darwin Core focuses on specimens and occurrences, Latimer Core is more about collection institution and how to describe them, and how it provides schemes and terms to be able to talk about the taxonomic, geographic, stratigraphic, historic, paleontologic coverage of different collections and institutions. It is used by Geocycle and also by the DISCO project in Europe, especially with the Elvis Stock project. So back to translating and challenges that I faced while trying to translate these terms. The first one, which was not that difficult for French, was which French to use. The French-speaking world is vast. You can see a map here, and it's a good way. Of accessing underrepresented communities in biodiversity informatics and even in biodiversity in general fields, such as, for example, the Middle East and North Africa. I personally am originally from a small country in the Middle East called Lebanon, where I'm recording this video from, and the choice went fairly easily to France's version of French because it's understood among most of the francophone communities around the world. Some Creoles are different enough from from France's French to be translated into separately. But for most people, because most people in the Francophone world will learn France's French at school, it's or be exposed to France's media. It's usually not that hard to choose that form. It's not hard to. It's fairly obvious to choose that form of French for translation. I am fairly curious about how that question would be solved for Spanish, so I look forward about discussing this very question with colleagues, especially that living data is happening right now in South America. Another challenge was how to translate standard terms and formulas. And here I'm thinking about a group of words that come again and again and again in standards. An example being recommended best practice. So recommended best practice would literally be translated in French as meilleure pratique recommandée, but it does not sound natural for French speakers. And in a lot of other translations that I found on the internet, the meilleure part or the best part of best practice is dropped and it's shortened to recommended practice or pratique recommandée. To keep the idea of best, I chose to translate it as pratique optimale recommandée or recommended optimal practice, which keeps the idea of best that is present in the original English while not speaking or not sounding weird to a French speaker. As for the insertion of Darwin Core and Latin Core terms in the sentence station, as you can see in the illustration here, the terms themselves are kept untranslated in their original form, but the sentence is then declined as if the term was translated in French. So here, for example, you have event, which in French would be événement, a masculine word, so that would call for the use of the masculine form of the article, what you can see here. And here, events in the plural form is here also, as you can see here on the word before it, will call for the plural s in French, which is exactly the same as the plural s in English. Another challenge is how to stay concise when it comes to translating some labels. French is a fairly talkative language. As you can see here, I give a fairly famous example of a German word. This is one word. German has the capacity to agglutinize or to glue together a lot of different concepts. English is a fairly is more talkative, but French is really talkative compared to the two other languages. And that is a real struggle, especially for the Humboldt extension, which I'm translating right now, which I'm still translating, which has longer labels, and I'm still trying to find an elegant way to make sure that to have a translation without having labels turned into full sentences. Another challenge was how to maintain terminological consistency across standards, because some terms are borrowed from Darwin Core in Latin Core, and some other terms are borrowed in Latin Core and from Darwin Core. Unsure if I said it the right way, but you got my point. The translation stayed the same in between the two standards. So it was, for French, it was made easy by the fact that I was the sole translator. Otherwise, Crowdin could help with that particular challenge. But as you can see here, it is important because of the normative nature of standards that the definitions are consistent in between the different standards. And if there are different translators for the different standards, some kind of workflow or something to be put in place to make sure that that the definitions are consistent in between different standards in case of borrowed terms. Another more interesting challenge coming from the linguistic side is whether to choose the translation that would reflect the community usage or choose the translation that would be, let's say, more scholarly accepted. And And it's not always that obvious. So for example, I take here the example of the invasive species situation. So invasive species, in French, you will come across the translation being espèce invasive. You'll see it in a lot of different documents, but technically, invasive is an anglicism and does not exist in French. This is why you see the proscribed here. The correct translation would be espèce envahissante. Espèce envahissante is used in a lot of documentation and the legal text and stuff like this. And because of this, and because of the fact that espèce invasive is not technically correct, I did go with espèce envahissante, even though it's not always the more used form. However, in another case, I chose to translate the word standard itself with standard. In French, standard would be more usually translated as norm, which is the same transparent word to norm in English. So for example, we would talk in French about une norme ISO for an ISO norm, for an ISO standard, sorry. And so I did choose to go with standard rather than norm, simply because it's the form that is both of them are grammatically correct, and standard is way more used by the community, as you can see here in the GBIF website. The word standard is used for language standards and the Darwin Core. And here, this is a biodiversity informatic course I had from my former professor, where she also talks about the standard d'échange de protocol for the standards that we use in biodiversity. And now, where do we go? There are discussions around the creation of an official workflow for transition for Tadway. This is an ongoing work, and hopefully it will provide a bit of help in how to proceed with translations, especially answering questions such as how do we synchronize translation with the updates and changes that happen naturally inside the standards as they are maintained. Most translations are incoming for French, Humboldt, as I said before, I'm working on it, and mineralogy extension, once it's approved and added, will also be translated to French. If you'd like to help with Latimer Core, you can contact Ben Norton or me to see how to get set up to help with the Latimer Core translation. And if you want to help, I have some recommendations. The first and the most important being just start. The hardest step is to begin. Once you get into it, it's much easier, and it's like a game, and you see the bar of the completion bar getting filled, and it's such a pleasure to have this feeling of work done. I would especially advise younger scientists who want to learn and familiarize themselves with the standards to go through this exercise, as you will have to go through every single definition. That will get you fairly well acquainted with them. And if you have any questions, if you have questions linked to Latimer Core, you can always ask the Latimer Core maintenance group. Or if you have questions linked to Darwin Core, you can obviously ask Darwin Core maintenance group. Your local GBIF node is probably also a good point of contact, because they are also usually fairly familiar with the Darwin. If you are multiple people working on it, you can try to divide it by class to make sure that it stays the most consistent possible, and discuss the used formulas among yourselves to make sure that, once again, the translation is consistent. I would like to finish this presentation by thanking Steve, Mascot, John Desorek, the GBIF France, and Annie Kerner and Paris who helped a lot with geological stuff, for their help in this endeavor. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, it would be a pleasure to answer them, and I'm looking forward to discussing this transition adventure with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eli. If someone has a question for Eli, we have a couple of minutes and we can take the question.
Hi. Yeah. Okay. So I'm Jerome from GBIF and Taiwan, and I think you catch a point that really reflects our experience about choosing the terms between like common community use or technical use. It is always a hard choice, and my experience is sometimes a personal choice is going to be different when more people joins in the choice. So I know now mostly you're working personally, but I wonder, have you, do you think about that in the future? Maybe there's going to be a group, or do you think that would be a preferred way, like personal to group discussion? I know it's a bit rough, but that's something we've been through now. It's our experiences. We have it in a group and also personal, and that conflicts. And yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a very good question. I think the issue with the technical versus what is being used in the community will come back to it's on case basis. So you will have to see for everyone, for each one, if it's how much you lose, where do you where do you choose to make the compromise, the trade-off in between what the community is using, even though it's not the grammatically correct way of saying it, and what is the more formal way of saying it. French is a bit special as it is a regulated language. Technically, we do have something called l'Académie Française, which kind of has the end of the end of that will basically say if a way of saying something is true or false, so that's a particularity of French. And for the one person versus multiple person situation, I think it's a bit easier if you're working alone, simply because, well, you don't depend on anyone else and you can go on your own rhythm. But at the same time, I think it's also fairly interesting to have multiple people working on this on the same translation, because you will have different inputs which will provide discussions that will probably get a better result in the end. So as long as you have a way of deciding when there's a problem or when there is when it's difficult to make a decision, as long as you have a way or a method to get around it, it should work, and it should probably produce something a little bit better.
Okay, thank you. We have another question.
Thank you. Hello, Ellie. Yeah, you know, from Belgium. Yeah, whoops, my copy. Yeah. So I was just asking, as you know, I'm translator for French for the GBIF portal, and we are there using a tool called Crowdin. So mostly it was text, but nowadays we also receive more structured content for the website or applications. So I was just wondering if the GBIF system could work for standards, or are they too much structured or different that we can use that same tool or not? Because there we are already a community working with multiple people together on same documents.
That's also a very good question. So I used mostly the system set up by GBIF that will be presented later in the session by Matt, if I'm not wrong. So it's Crowdin. It works pretty well. It doesn't create any difficulties for standards in particular. What I will also take this time to make a little bit of a shout out to the French people, to the Cajun colleague that is translating most of the stuff in French for GBIF, that works extremely hard for it, and who we benefit from her work in France. So the Carole Signou. And yeah, it doesn't really, it's not a problem. It works well. Crowdin works well for this, and it does provide the advantage of helping with the highly repetitive formulas that are heavily present in standards.
Okay, well, quick last question.
Yeah, hi, I'm also, okay, sorry. Hi, I'm also from Taipei, I'm Melissa, and I want to ask, would you use the AI tool to assist the translation work, or do you think that would be helpful for the translation in the future?
That is a very good question. So I did use for a good part of the translation, what I used to do is to go through DeepL and have DeepL do most of the work and then correct what DeepL gives. The thing is, when you go through automatic translation or even AI translation, there are part of the very word that the very problem that we were talking about 2 questions before about the community usage. So some words will be translated as it would be in the common language, not in the context, not with the context that we use it in particular for biodiversity data. So you can use the automatic translation will help a great deal, but you will still need to check it to make sure that it does take the sense and the meaning that we have for the context of biology and the context of biodiversity data.
Okay, Eli, thank you very much. We're gonna go to the next talk. Talks that speak the language, a multilingual approach to local barriers in biodiversity data sharing by Jijo Zhang from GBIF.
Can I have the pointer? How do I change the slide? Okay. Thank you. The next slide.
This next slide, and this is the point.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, good afternoon everyone. My name is Su Jun and I'm the developer from GBIF, which is one of the GBIF nodes from Taiwan. My topic today will be tools that speak your language, a multilingual approach to lowering barriers in biodiversity data sharing. Okay. I think most of us would agree with that opening data is challenging for the beginners. For example, terminal alert. The beginners are often shocked when they first opening Darwin Core Quick Reference Guide. And what's worse, the workflow of open data is also fragmented. They have to learn different tools to complete the entire process of open data. In the meanwhile, it costs a lot of time, effort, and technical support. And however, for many users, especially in Taiwan, language could be the first barrier they face. So in today's presentation, we would like to introduce 2 different tools to ease the pain. The first one will be an all-in-one tool called GBIF Open Data Toolkit, ODT for short. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the workflow is fragmented. So we concatenate every step of opening data into one tool, so the users can complete the process more easily. And the features of each steps are inspired by the tools below. For example, in data editing page, we provide an Excel-like table that allows users to edit their data on that page. Okay, thank you. And maybe some of you may heard of this tool last year. It was debuted in Okinawa, Japan. And over the past years, the ODT interface and Darwin Core terms are only available in traditional Chinese. But in this year, English interface was added. And before we move on to the next slide, I would like to have a quick quiz. What is the official language of Colombia? Yes, thank you. Correct, and thank you. So let's meet Spanish interface of ODT. But as you can see, only the interface is in Spanish. The Darwin Core terms are still in traditional Chinese. So we hope to collaboration on translation to make ODT more robust in Spanish or other languages. Okay. In addition, the more features are added on ODT too. We have new feature in data cleaning page. For example, we have text facet, filter facet, replace text, swap calling content, and fetch species API to make the process more easier and quickly. The second tool will be digital type beaver. Briefly, it is a GPT-powered assistant. It answers questions about open data. And its prototype was built by Yao Zhen, who is also the winner of App Nielsen Challenge last year. And this AI assistant now is developed by ChatGPT. So you can find it on GPT Store. This AI assistant is cool, right? But why does it matter we need this tool? These are the issues that we have encountered. First of all is the help desk is overloaded. I mean, human needs to sleep, right? Maybe some of you does not sleep that often. You are excluded. Secondly, the linguistic diversity in Asia is quite high. They lead to communication gaps. And finally, the workshop lifespan is short. The knowledge is often forgotten after the event. But I'm not blaming anyone. I do forget things too. So with digital type beaver, you can have a 24/7 smart support. Human can go to sleep and robot work. It also stays aligned with global standards. It supports not only Darwin Core terms, but also the data package and Humble extension. It will also integrate training materials, common FAQs, and self-learning resources. The best part of digital type beaver is that it answers directly in users' language. So with digital type beaver, makes your life easier. And that's almost my presentation. If you would interested in collaboration with us or give us some feedback or comment, we are very welcome to have you contact with us. And if you want to try on TypeBeef Open Data Toolkit, we have the application in both Windows and Mac operation systems. Or if you plan to make your life easier, go through Digital Type Beaver. And thank you for all your attention and support from these organizations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We have time for a quick question. Okay, let's give it for the discussion. We're going to go to the next one. It's by Camila Plata, and it's titled Translate to Focus on What Really Matters, Our Biodiversity, SIP Colombia's Journey.
Hi everyone, so I'm Camila Plata. I'm from Catalog of Life, but I was part of SIP Colombia's team for several years, and I was involved in the translation process. So I'm speaking in behalf of SIP Colombia today, although I'm no longer there. So I will show you like the more than a decade-long process of translating. We started quite early, and yeah, there. And everyone that's here is keen on translation, so I don't have to convince you. But we know language can be a real barrier for addressing biodiversity research and any kind of field of knowledge. But it's also not about translation and itself, but the previous speakers also talk about how technique can be our documentation. So we have, there's also another layer of translations, how to put the technical words into a way that people can understand, because we have any kind of publishers. We have maybe researchers who understand things in a way, but we have citizen sciences, we are also companies and only other kind of users. And we also have very variable context, so it's not the same in Taiwan, it's not the same in France, it's not the same in Colombia, so this really adds up a lot of details in how we can make a translation that is really useful for our publishers and users. But luckily, there's solutions out there. We all have shown some of these things, so we need to translate, adapt some of the things that we have with some tooling, with some words, and also help to learn these new languages. And it goes for Darwin Core, other standards, and also our documentation. So in SIP Colombia, there were like 4 milestones around translation. One was having spreadsheets for Darwin Core, for the extensions, to have online documentation of the Darwin Core, and also to have like a broader kind of documentation around the standard. So we started quite early, as I mentioned before, in 2012. So there was not so much about AI, not so much about Crowdin. So I think the tool back then was Google Translate, and that was as techy as it gets. And it was a very simple spreadsheet where the headers of each column was translated into Spanish with a little side note with a very one-to-one translation for each Darwin Core term. So, and at that point, we were also translating some controlled vocabularies, which is not a good practice, but that's what we did at that point. And nowadays, this is how the spreadsheet for the occurrence score is working right now. So we get like a first header with the actual element in Darwin Core, and as a second line, we have the translation in Spanish. For some years, the element in English was hidden. But then later we realized it was also important for the people, for the publishers, to really see the term both in English and in Spanish. So it's a way of passively doing a Darwin Core inception. So it's really helping out. And then we are having some very detailed definitions. So of course we keep like intact the meaning of each Darwin Core element, but then we are doing some interpretations. We are giving some further guidelines. After having hundreds of workshops, we know what are the common questions of our publishers. So we know that some things are not clear, like no matter how well we translate it, are not clear. So we are giving specific examples of usages, and sometimes, and in Colombia, luckily, biodiversity is very taken into account in very legal and several legal processes. So anyone that is publishing through SIP Colombia, sometimes they have to put some statutory information too. So we also help them in the definitions and examples to better work around those things. With a single publication, you are also giving the government what they want and the researchers what they want. So right now, this is like, we have by now 11 versions of the occurrence spreadsheet. Every time Darwin Core is being updated, we are doing it too. We also went into translating the taxon core and the event core. I don't know how it's going to be with the Darwin Core data package, so that's maybe a challenge for all of us. We also translated 8 extensions, the commonly used ones by our community, so this was really important too. And these are some metrics of the impact we had until now. So we know at least 18 countries across Latin America are using these spreadsheets. And we also know that most of those are from Latin American, I said that also, but also throughout Spain and other countries. So this has been very interesting for us. And we know that the interaction that these spreadsheets have on our webpage, which is a hosted portal, is quite high. So we know that people is really downloading the things, like exploring around. So we know it's not they are not just exploring, but really engaging with the content. Later on, I think in 2019, and maybe Paula is online, we made a plea for the TDWG to have an official translation of the standard, not only like this side hustle, and I think it worked, like right now, like all of us are translating in Crowdin and an official TDWG page, as Ellie showed us. So right now we are working, sorry, I'm telling a story of another slide. Well, I will finish the story. So now we're currently translating this in Crowdin. We are around in 70% of the translation right now. And then I go back, and this is before we started with the Crowdin thing. We got inspired by the nice web page that is online right now, and in 2022 we did an adaptation of that page. So this is what I'm showing here. So with the hosted portal that is very easy to handle, we created our own quick reference guide for the Darwin Core. But this has our interpretation, so it can maybe used for several of the Latin American countries, but maybe it's not like so generalized. While with the Crowdin part, we do have that. Here we have some more usage metrics. So right now, Uruguay is also adopting the spreadsheets that we produce. So they have them on their hosted portal. They already had a very good background from what we had, and they make just little tweaks here and there. And we also see, again, all Latin American Spanish-speaking countries are using all these tools. This I explained. And for the third part, of course, this translations is done, but we throughout all these years, like we have seen, it's not enough to have the translation there. Like you have to really point people to the tools, to the information. So we also have in our hosted portals a lot of material around Darwin Core. So we are more detailed on how to explain how to use the standard and how to use the translation, and also having this bilingual thing, Spanish, English, so the learning is a higher. We also have had work with the translation of several documents. So we put all effort of our group and our community to translate several documents, between the 3 guides around georeferencing, 2 guides about good practices for impact assessments, the IPT manual, and the base courses around GBIF. This was done by Colombia mainly, but remember that we have a huge network of volunteer translators, so just join and you can help around. I think probably most of us are already doing it, but we can also invite more people to join in. And this is some of the experiences that our Latin American colleagues have had with our tooling, both the spreadsheets and the interpretations of Darwin Core in our webpage. They say that it's helping them to reduce errors. It's easier to use this kind of information we have. They give them more confidence to use the standards, so it doesn't feel such a weird thing. They also help them to increase the outreach of their workshops, and to help them to start. It really helps people to start with the standards, so it's like a good background. And of course, this is a group endeavor. We started in 2012, so this is all the people in SIP Colombia's team across several years that has been working on these translations. And I know with the volunteer network and for the Spanish in Crowdin, it's quite larger. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Camila. We have a quick question.
Yeah, hi, I'm Melissa again, and I just wondering, like, how do you like promote all the translated documents and the tools like you already done to and make sure it's like spread widely in the community, because I think it might also be important to trace back, like, is there any like users, or how many of users has a need and have a need, and like who already use these documents and the tools.
So for Colombia, I can say it's the 100% of the publishers, because there are the tools that they use in their workflow. So every publisher starts from one of these spreadsheets, and is a translation, but it's also a tool. So in all workshops that TIP Colombia is given, there are giving these spreadsheets, they are showing, there are exercises, there are laboratories that are using the tooling. So that really increase how they incorporate this in their processes. And we know like even companies are using this. So Colombia is 100%. And we have participated through several BID projects, CES projects, and other independent projects with the Latin American region, where we also use this tooling. So it's part of a preset package of training that we have, so that's how. And you could see that like almost every Latin American country was using the spreadsheets. And we got also some response from Spain that once in a while they also go to these kind of resources.
And also they jealous that you have the big common language in Latin America. So yeah, also the wider one, yeah. Thank you.
I cannot imagine how it's for you, because it's still challenging for us. So. Yes.
Thank you, Camila, very much. And we want to continue with our last talk, translating Darwin Core, another that with the standards using Crowdin, presented by Matt Blissett. And then.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so Matt and I are splitting this presentation. So I'm Daniel. I work for the comms team in GBIF. Oh, sorry, where's the remote? Here we go. Let's see. All right, so we use volunteer translators across a variety of different outputs, including the main gbif.org website, training materials, various printed publications, videos, and official documents in unofficial versions. Aside from having a very active community of 20 to 30 regular translators from inside the GBIF network, typically Node staff and data publishers, seeing quite a few faces out there. We also engage volunteers in other settings. For example, we've had staff from our Polish node set up hackathon sessions in which students from both biology and language studies work together to translate all of gbif.org in basically 2 weekends. Also, we've worked together with faculty at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, Scotland, who had their students do work placements at GBIF, through which we provided translation tasks in packages for a set number of hours. We've done this twice, once for a single student and another time for 4 students. For us, it's a bit labor intensive, but the quality of the translation work is usually quite good. And then to acknowledge the work that translators do, we issue electronic badges every year to those who are interested. All right, so this is the value of having this translator and volunteer community is quite significant. So you may have heard about this study that Deloitte carried out in 2023 to quantify the return on investment made by countries to GBIF. Aside from showing that for every €1 invested, GBIF provides €3 in benefits to users and up to €12 in societal benefits, the study also estimated that the annual value of volunteer activities is almost €1 million per year. So quite a lot. So when we are talking about translations of sort of our website and similar things, we have a workflow that integrates our CMS with the translation service. So as shown on the screen now, as new content gets drafted into our CMS, the source is then automatically imported into Crowdin, and translators will then get a notification that there's new content. And when the translators complete a translation, this then gets updated, that gets automatically pulled back into the CMS where we can review and publish it. When I say review, it's mostly just look and see it looks okay. So, and then also if content is updated in the CMS, there's another notification that goes back, and then the same workflow basically repeats. In terms of benefits, the workflow is more or less seamless, and it works automatically. We have the option of manually selecting what content is put out for translation, but we could also choose to add everything. We haven't, because that's a bit overwhelming. As also mentioned a few times before, Crowdin remembers the phrases that are used a lot so that they can be suggested when doing new translation. And I think that another great benefit for translator is that when there are changes, only the sentences that actually are changed
So, is it working? Okay. Crowdin can translate all kinds of text, structured or unstructured text. We've been given free accounts for both GBIF and TDWG, so thanks for that. Although the word says a crowd, it's worth knowing that it's only the people who are invited that get to make the translations or review the translations. It supports a couple of workflows. As far as I know, everyone is not using any of these special workflows, but you can have initial translations and then a manager or someone to review and approve the translations. The translations are shared, so if you translate basis of record for the GBIF website, when you next go to the Darwin Core and start a translation on that, it's already there. You just need to tick the button. And there's some technical workflows and APIs. We're using only one of them, but it's open for others if others wish to extract the translations directly from Crowdin. This is what it looks like. I suspect most of you are familiar, but in any case, on the left there, you get the list of translations. This is the Spanish one of Darwin Core. At the top, that basis of record, at the moment I took this screenshot, had not been translated. So we get the English text. We get some context. There's the information in English and the link to it here. You type in the Spanish text here and click Save. Down at the bottom, that's the translation memory. So it's found this translation, presumably from the GBIF website for this phrase. And over here is the voting system, if you've got disagreements, because I took a later screenshot a few days later when it was translated. This is what it looks like when we have a change. The Darwin Core Standard was updated in September, I think. This word was changed from GBIF registry to global registry. It was a small correction. So the user gets to see the change. They can make the same change in Spanish. There's an automatic workflow. I've made it to be as open as I can. So all the scripts are in GitHub, and much of this runs with GitHub Actions. When the translation is added, when the text to translate is added, perhaps a new term is added to the standard, or a whole new standard is added to the system. They go into Crowdin. The translator adds the translation or changes an existing translation. Within around an hour, that goes through into the GitHub, and then further automatic scripts put that into the TDWG term repository, also the Darwin Core website, and also the IPT. So they're on the GitHub if you just want to get them into your own system from a CSV file or something like that. They're on the Darwin Core website like this, and in the next version of the IPT, they'll show up like this. So you'll have the interface in this case, 100% Spanish, which has been a request for about 12 years, I think. So it's been long overdue. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Matt. And Daniel, you have a small question?
Thank you very much. I'm definitely not familiar with those tools, but we do have a lot of translations to do because we have a vocabulary of some kind of a mountain biodiversity ontology of about 20,000 words. Would that be something, a tool that would serve for that?
I think so.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yes, I think so. The vocabulary is probably very structured as JSON or XML or similar. You might need to write something to turn it into a nicer form for Crowdin, to give the explanation. Rocks, or what does this rocks mean? Which type of rocks? So in the Darwin Core one, it says, so this is the label for the term, this is the definition, this is the example. So there's a little bit of integration. But if it's just text, it goes in and goes out.
Thanks, Matt. That was really a nice presentation about the language translation. So my question is, how does it affect, like for example, I'm developing the hosted portal and I want to employ those kind of language translation. Is it, what do you think? Is I do it in a Crowdin, or I will directly edit it in the hosted portal?
If you have content in the hosted portal, like the interface, the menus, the search interface, the GBIF bits, like the names for the columns and so on, that's ready for translation already in the in Crowdin. If you have content that you're writing for your hosted portal that's only going to be in one language, or even actually in any, whatever languages, we haven't set that up in Crowdin, but I think it's something we can consider. Oh, you're trying it, you've started already. All right.
Okay, thank you.
We have one online question for Matt. So, is part of your workflow recording who contribute to the translating so that they can be recognized in the finished document?
That's a good question, Steve. And yes, the Crowdin system records who made the translations. If we import translations, that information can't be imported. Or sometimes if we move things around a lot. But in general, it does credit. Daniel might know more because he does the works on that.
So once a year, we basically extract information from Crowdin on all the translations that have been done, who have done them, so that we have a basis of generating these volunteer badges. So if you contributed, you will get offered a badge for that contribution.
Badges are just like virtual things for doing jobs.
They are digital badges that you can use and display anywhere you like. Sorry. Yes.
Would it be possible to show the credit to translators, like credit for the translator that who translated which documents or what kind of tool or which page? Like, for example, IPT, if we have like some translator like translate into traditional Chinese, is it able to show the name of on IPT or?
I think that it's not something we've done a lot. I think that for some guides and longer documents, we have included information about who have contributed translation to it. But for the website and other things, we haven't normally done that, but it's something we could consider doing.
I would say that the Darwin Core Standard is a long document. It doesn't look long, right, when you just look at the terms, but there's a huge amount of detailed text in that. It's an issue on the issue tracker. Where do we add in this credit? Because the TDWG website's got lots of spots it could go.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we don't no. It's 3.
So which one do you recommend? Manually translating your web page or using the Crowdin for the language multi-hosted portal or the IPT?
I think that's case by case. I'll talk to you after. I don't know. Depends on how useful that content might be for other hosted portals, how many languages you're translated into, whether you update it. We'll see.
Okay, thank you very much. It's 3 p.m. 3:01, sorry. We hope to have a little bit of a discussion, but I think we have learned a lot of today. I just want to say that we did this in English. You're going to wondering why. We still think that English is really important to communicate across borders, and maybe for your publishers and for your users, you use your own language. But if we have used everyone their own language, we couldn't know French, Spanish, Chinese, Danish. So English is still really useful. We will continue using across borders, maybe the more technical stuff like we are here, but we are our users. We have to make their life as easy as possible. Thanks for coming here. I hope you have meeting new people and you can chat later about the translations. Steve is telling us that in the standards page they recognize who have contributed and they could pull the information of who are the specific translation for the in every language package. Okay, so thank you very much, and see you around. Thanks, Eddie.